All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously wild document known as the A-F1-XF file. Now, whether you view this as straight-up science fiction, some kind of modern bureaucratic mythology, or a legitimately hidden slice of history, the source text we're digging into today presents a fascinating, highly structured labyrinth of alleged secret programs. We're going to look strictly at what the text itself claims, breaking down this massive web of UFO retrievals, interstellar diplomacy, and most importantly, exactly how they supposedly reverse-engineered alien technology. So let's trace the breadcrumbs. Now, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this, we've got to look at the level of secrecy we're dealing with here. According to whistleblowers cited in the document, these black projects are buried so incredibly deep that even the highest levels of government might be completely in the dark. The text highlights this quote from a military scientist who allegedly worked at highly classified installations, places like S-41, Area 51, and Dulce Base. This guy claims that even the President of the United States isn't fully briefed on the whole shebang. I mean, just think about the implications of that for a second. It's describing a parallel world of compartmentalized power, operating entirely in the shadows.
So what actually is A-F1-XF? Well, think of it as a master index. According to the source, it's a top-secret file containing the absolute most sensitive data and findings on over 50 alleged black operations executed by government agencies and the military. And what's really crazy here is the restriction of access. The file claims that, aside from the US Air Force, only 2 other unnamed agencies even have the clearance to read this master document.
And this lays out the staggering scope of these claims. We're not just talking about blurry photos of lights in the sky here. The text claims these projects involved some truly frightening directives. We're looking at the alleged development of highly sophisticated weapon systems and exotic aircraft, right alongside much darker initiatives like psychological warfare and even mind control. The document actually notes that a lot of ufologists advocate the theory that reported alien abductions were, in reality, part of these sinister experimental programs carried out jointly by the US and extraterrestrials. Okay, as mind-bending as all of that is, the text spends a massive chunk of time detailing the specific technological leap our military allegedly made. And this is where we really dive into our main focus today, how exactly they reverse-engineered these crafts. Because, before you can reverse-engineer a flying saucer, you kind of have to get your hands on one, right? You can't just build a military spaceship out of thin air. You need the raw materials. So the big question is, how did they actually do it? If we follow the logic of the F1-XF file, the military had to run this massive, dual-pronged operation. You need one side facing the public, basically keeping everyone looking the other way, and another side operating in total secrecy to physically scoop up the technology. Well, the file describes exactly that, a really clever 2-pronged approach. First, you have the public-facing cover-up, managed by things like Project Blue Book from 1952 to 1969. According to the text, its primary objective was simply to put an end to all public UFO sighting reports. Nothing to see here, folks. But concurrently, covert operations like Project Blue Team and Project Moondust were running in the background. These groups were dedicated to investigating the actually reliable sightings and, crucially, physically retrieving crashed alien crafts. They were the hidden cleanup crews securing the hardware. And this whole operation absolutely didn't happen overnight. It was a massive escalation that took place over a 25-year period. Starting in 1947, Project Red Light began handling the initial cover-ups. By 1950, things escalated dramatically with Project Magnet, which the text claims actually began test flying the recovered UFOs alongside the Canadian Air Force. Then, jumping ahead to 1972, we hit a massive milestone with Project Snowbird. This is where they shifted from just joyriding in recovered ships to actually developing entirely new, secret military spaceships based on those alien blueprints. Now, this is arguably the most crucial part of the whole document, the exact pipeline Project Snowbird allegedly used to reverse engineer these crafts. It's literally laid out like an assembly line. Step 1. Blue Team and Moondust secure the crashed materials. Step 2. Project Magnet takes the incredibly dangerous step of actually climbing in and test flying these recovered vehicles. Step 3. That raw flight data is handed to Project Pounce to decode the alien science and evaluate what it means for the military. And finally, Step 4. All of that intel feeds directly into Project Snowbird. They weren't just patching up old saucers. They were building entirely new, highly sophisticated military spaceships from the ground up, all based on that captured tech. But who was actually running the show? Pulling off something like Snowbird requires a massive bureaucratic machine. The document reveals unprecedented interagency collaboration. As you can see, the Air Force is practically everywhere, running Snowbird, Aurora, and the recovery teams. But they're heavily supported by the CIA, the NSA, and NASA. When you look at Snowbird, which is really the pinnacle of this whole reverse engineering effort, the file notes it was jointly managed by the Air Force, NASA, and the CIA. We're talking about a whole-of-government shadow operation here. So, what was the end game of all this intense reverse engineering? The technological peak supposedly resulted in two major aerospace goals. We already covered Project Snowbird's mandate to build military spaceships, but the file also details Project Aurora, starting in 1987. Aurora's objective was the design and construction of a triangular-shaped spacecraft, and according to the text, this wasn't just your standard stealth plane, it was a super hypersonic stealth aircraft capable of exceeding Mach 11. No way, right? Mach 11.
Of course, once they supposedly figured out how the tech worked and actually built the aircraft, the file claims the military inevitably took a more aggressive stance. They pivoted to weaponizing this alien technology against potential extraterrestrial threats. Basically, the focus shifted from just quietly observing and retrieving to active, heavily armed planetary defense.
The text actually outlines two totally distinct and honestly pretty intense approaches to this defense strategy. On one hand, you have Project Excalibur. Its objective was exploring weapon systems to counterattack alien invasions, specifically by developing technology capable of destroying extraterrestrial bases hidden underground and even underwater right here on Earth. On the other hand, there's Project Gabriel, sometimes called Joshua, which started in 1972. This project took a totally different route, developing a super low-frequency pulsed sound system specifically designed to destroy alien weapons.
But, the A-F1-XF file is massive, and it wasn't all just about building space weapons and bracing for an invasion. The text also outlines several programs dedicated to diplomatic relations and off-world exploration. It seems that while one hand of this shadow government was building sound weapons, the other hand was actively trying to extend an olive branch.
This whole diplomatic expansion supposedly started out relatively small back in 1947 with Project Sign, which was really just evaluating the threats. But it quickly escalated to Project Plato. Now, Plato had the incredible objective of establishing and implementing a protocol for diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials, and the text specifically notes that the White House was an authority on this one. Meanwhile, Project Luna pushed our reach outward, allegedly investigating alien bases and underground facilities located on the dark side of the moon.
But guys, the most staggering diplomatic claim in this entire file, which is allegedly backed by military insiders and even MI6 sources, involves direct physical contact that started way back in the 1940s. This early contact ultimately culminated in a mind-blowing operation initially called Project Crystal Night, which later took on the codename Project SERPO.
12. According to the whistleblower cited in the text, that is the exact number of U.S. military personnel selected for an absolutely unprecedented mission. Project SERPO allegedly sent this 12-person military team to the actual home planet of visiting extraterrestrials during the 1960s and 70s. The text claims this was a planned 10-year stay. Literally, an interstellar exchange program managed by the Air Force, NASA, and the Defense Intelligence Agency. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question as we wrap up this explainer. We've mapped out how the text claims they recovered crafts, meticulously reverse-engineered them through the Snowbird pipeline, built Mach 11 stealth jets, and even sent a dozen humans across the galaxy. But remember, the A-F1-XF file supposedly indexes over 50 secret programs. So, if a 10-year interstellar exchange program and the construction of military spaceships are just the parts that whistleblowers have actually leaked, what could possibly be hiding in the rest of those black projects? It's a genuinely fascinating document that entirely reframes the boundaries of modern conspiracy theories. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.